Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I would like to talk about the basic principles of design and a process called design thinking. Design thinking is a repetitive process whereby a designer uses careful thought, research, brainstorming, creating and testing to make a product that meets the needs or fulfills the desires of its users in the most suitable and satisfying way possible. As a practical example, I'm going to walk you guys through the steps that I took to design my new YouTube banner artwork using a design thinking process. The first thing I wanted to consider was how viewers would feel when they visited my channel. I wanted to think about how I wanted to portray myself and my content to those people. And I very quickly reached the conclusion that I wanted people to feel welcomed, but also like they were in the hands of someone who knew what they were doing. I wanted to come across as friendly and creative and enthusiastic, but also someone who takes what they do very seriously. And I wanted people to see that I take my content seriously. So then I went on to the next step, which is basically defining the problem or area that needed to be tackled with this design. Basically, I had to think about what information do people need to know the moment that they arrive on my channel, and how can I give them that information in the most aesthetically pleasing way possible. So the first design that I had, which I don't have on this computer, actually just had this lovely font here with my name and then the filmmaking and video essays section underneath here. I actually got these colors from a color palette that I made in Photoshop. This is a photograph of me that was taken on a film camera. I was filming a music video and I used the color picker tool to just grab colors from this that would work really well together. It also meant that the colors in this, which is my profile picture, would just match nicely with the profile picture and the YouTube banner artwork. So I decided that the most important information that people would need to know when they come to my channel is, first of all, this is my brand, this is my name, this is who I am, JT Semple. That's right, big, brightest color on the top. And then the other most important thing that they needed to know is that this channel is about filmmaking and video essays. And that is right there underneath that, also in a nice pale font that stands out from this grey font in the background. In terms of aesthetics, I think this is a particularly good font pairing because this one's this nice, beautiful, curly handwriting font, very creative, very textured, very natural. And then there's this more serious, minimalist kind of font here for the filmmaking and video essays tagline. I also did a lot of brainstorming and researching during this process, which is just me researching other YouTubers' banner art and having a look to try and figure out what I liked, and also teaching myself how to use Photoshop. I did 1 or 2 classes at college, but most of this I taught myself with Google. And then it got down to actually creating. I spent many hours in Photoshop doing 3 versions of this. Like I mentioned, the first one just had this text here at the top. And then the second one is this one actually, where I got this free PNG image and I matched it up with this line over here. This line is exactly the same thickness as these ones in the image here. And this was my second design. This is my third design, however, which after doing a lot of testing, which I'll get into in a second, I decided that this one would be more appropriate. I felt like it was more cohesive. If you look at the banner artwork on my channel, this line running through here just like created this nice separation and something like firm for everything to sit on. It also kind of grounded this element here to like stop it from feeling like it was floating, if that made sense. So this is my final design and the one that I'm actually using on my channel. So then testing was kind of the final step in my process. I uploaded all of these various banners to my YouTube channel, testing them to see if they looked right, if the sizing was right, how the fonts came out and everything. And then when I discovered that the third one worked best, I then went on and showed it to friends and family to get their responses to see how they would feel as viewers. And it's been pretty positive. So that's just kind of a very practical, very simple example of how a design thinking process works in real life for someone who's a fairly newbie content creator and still learning about these things. Now let's talk about design principles with a couple of examples from movies and TV shows and online content. Alignment simply refers to the arranging of the connections between various elements in a manner that is visually appealing. An example I really like is the opening scene of the first Deadpool movie, where the credits are tracked to points in the video. Sometimes they are smoothly revealed from behind objects, panning with the camera, while other times they're tagged to objects in the frame, where they hang while the camera moves. Alignment and placement, which I will get into later, are the two main principles at play here. The position of the credits in the film is both visually pleasing and comedically effective. Okay, so I'm gonna just do a quick little examination of this Avengers Infinity War poster to explain how hierarchy works in design. Hierarchy is basically juggling multiple elements in a design. So image and text and background. It's about giving weight to what's important. So one of the first subsections of hierarchy is size, and you can see over here that Thanos, who is a massively important character, he's our big bad, he's the guy we've been waiting for since Iron Man was a thing, like more than a decade ago, and he's giant in the frame. And then Tony Stark, who's been our other central character, basically the start of the MCU properly, he's our second biggest thing in the frame. And then you'll notice that characters who are not as important necessarily, still beloved, but not as important, like Falcon over here, he's quite small, and Doctor Strange is a little bigger, and then there's Wong in the background. Color and contrast is also another thing to pay attention to. It can be used to bring attention to certain elements or take attention away from them. But you can see here that they've blended some of the other characters into the sort of background color here. You see Rocket blending in a bit here, and Bucky over here as well. But other ones are standing out really nicely, like Thanos here with the purple stands out very nicely against this orange. It's also brighter and darker colors. See, he's darker here in the frame, but this is quite bright, and that's made him sort of stand out as if he's almost backlit. Similar thing here with Peter Parker. He's kind of shadowed here, but he's still standing out nicely against these dark colors of Black Widow's outfit. The same can also be observed kind of with the text, where it's a very, very bright, it's a yellow color, which complements perfectly this purple here. Of all this debris in the background. Also, typeface is important here, using a variation of type styles and sizes to create a hierarchy, because bigger, bolder texts normally get more attention. So you'll notice here that Marvel Studios, that stands out nicely from this background here, but it is not the most important thing. The fact that this is made by Marvel is not the most important thing. The most important thing that this is an Avengers film. Big, bold, embossed, standing out over here. And then Infinity War is like the second biggest text on the page here, hidden underneath Avengers. And then all of the other credits and stuff, that's kind of blending in. I mean, you can kind of see their names here, the actors, but we don't really need to know that. We know that already. We know their faces. However, what is important is they've got the date. Nice, bright, white, contrasting perfectly with the black at the bottom here, because that date is important, and the fact that it is in IMAX as well. Placement is also another thing to consider. You'll notice that they've stretched Tony's arms out here like this, and everyone else is kind of framed almost like under the shadow of his wings, in a sense, underneath the sort of lines created along one of the third line over here. And also proximity, which is just the placing of elements that are similar, placing those together because we group similar or related elements and relevant bits of information. And when you put them together, it is perceived that these things are more related. You'll notice, for example, all of your Guardians are right here in this corner, and Thor, who meets up with the Guardians, is connected to them. Also along the same lines, Captain America, who is obviously now fighting with the Wakandan people, he is featured over here, along with Bucky. So none of these are particularly groundbreaking revelations. It's just showing you how hierarchy works and how you can very easily identify this just by taking a little bit of time to look at an image. I'm going to handle color and contrast as one principle in this video essay, as I believe that the two are largely inseparable since color creates contrast. As I've explored in previous videos, colors create moods, and contrast can be used to make a design or subject stand out from its background. An example of color usage that I love is The Handmaid's Tale, which won an Emmy for Outstanding Production Design for a narrative contemporary program for its pilot episode, Offred, in 2017. The Handmaid's Tale has a complementary green and red color palette, and the contrast between the popping red of the handmaid's garments and the murky green shades of the background makes the characters stand out, reflecting how they are trying to rise above their circumstances. On the other hand, the color palette for the families who abused them is generally blue and yellow. Not quite a complementary palette, just off enough to suggest that something is wrong, blending the subjects into their surroundings, implying how their beliefs are keeping themselves and others captive and incapable of progress. Negative space is a technique employed in design where the composition of an image is made up of consistent space that contrasts or engulfs the subject in that particular frame. A favorite example of mine is Garden State, where the negative space is used to show how the main character is not only engulfed by his surroundings when he returns to the home he has avoided for so many years, but also the emptiness and emotionless state of his mind after almost a decade on pharmaceutical drugs. In design, negative space also creates and forms the shapes that we see, drawing our eye to what is most important in the frame. There are no shapes and no subjects without negative space. Balance refers to the organization of your frame, basically ensuring that the elements therein work well together, distributed evenly throughout your designs or your visuals so that nothing looks lopsided, unless of course that is your intention. The most extreme example of balance is, of course, symmetry. And who else is the master of symmetry other than Wes Anderson? I haven't seen a great deal of his films, but my theory about his choice in composition is that it is so settled that it is in fact unsettling, suggesting that behind this perhaps visually perfect scene, there lurks this unnatural, subversive theme. Finally, the last principle, repetition. Repetition is a design principle that is most frequently employed when one seeks to strengthen the brand identity of a brand. It encompasses many of the design principles that I have previously mentioned. It's about repeating colors and patterns and placement and balance to reinforce your brand image. An example of this is the standard opening sequence from Hot Ones, where they repeat the same formula for their designs and formats to provide the viewer the security and comfort of watching something familiar. The videos open with a funny quote from the guest, then flows into their jolly logo, followed by the host introducing the show and the guest with graphics popping up at the perfect moment each time. Anyway, that's it for this video essay, guys. I'll be back with another one in about a week or so. Until next time, cheers.